You are listening to the Wildlife Photography Podcast with Rob Reed and Josh Galicki, bringing together the love of nature and photography. Episode 29, we talk about shooting with friends versus shooting on your own. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the Wildlife Photography Podcast with me, Rob Reed, and my co-host Josh Galicki. Hey Josh, been a while. How you doing?
It has. Doing well. I'm getting itchy. I want to get out there and shoot again. It's been kind of a lull for me. There's a lot of things moving out, coming in. So the past couple of weeks, it's been pretty dull, but I'm looking forward to getting out there, getting my camera back in my hands. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been out quite a bit, but we're being slammed at the moment by Storm Bert. So we've had 24 hours of torrential rain and, high winds, and there's flooding everywhere, and it's causing havoc over here at the moment. So I'm going to have to wait for that to pass and for things to settle. But I've been shooting a fair amount because, since we last spoke, as you know, Georgina came to stay. So I had,
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, she stayed with me, but obviously she was awarded in Wildlife Photographer of the Year this year. So she went to the awards presentation in London, and I don't live too far away from London. It's only an hour's train journey. So I picked her up from Heathrow, and she came and stayed for 3 days, and we had a blast.
I saw some of her Instagram stories. It looked like a wild time. I saw you all shooting with Vic and some of the clips from the ceremony. It looked like a great time.
Yeah, no, we had a really good laugh, and as you say, we met up with Vic as well. So the three of us went out sort of photographing fungi. Not there was much fungi around, when we went to the woods, but we had a good time, and it was great to introduce those two as well. So it was a really fun time, and this really inspired the subject for this podcast, because I realized that when you shoot on your own, which we all tend to do quite a lot because wildlife photography is quite a solitary pursuit most of the time, but when you shoot with others, it's amazing how you can inspire each other and push each other, and go down, explore things that you wouldn't have necessarily explored on your own. So that's why I thought this theme might be good to chat through. But no, it was we had an absolute ball for 3 days. The weather was kind, which was, apart from when we went mushroom hunting, and we were absolutely soaked towards the end of the day, but that was part of the fun as well. Sort of giggling in the car on the way back, just sort of steam coming off our clothes where we got so wet. But so we had a great time. So the weather generally was kind. Got some fantastic images, which I'm still processing, but no, I was really, really pleased with a lot of them. So it was great. I've met Georgina before briefly, but it was great to spend some proper time with her, and really get to know her properly in person, as opposed to just being online and going out shooting with her. I mean, we got on really, really well, and it was just a fun time. So wish we could have more sort of sessions like that, really. Sort of shooting on your own sometimes can get a bit lonely, because you shoot primarily on your own, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's got its pros and cons, and I know we'll dive into that. But and it's mostly just out back, and in a way, I've shot this area. It's like my own little patch now. There's a cove out back here that I always shoot in, and things change because different birds and different animals come in and out throughout the seasons, but you can kind of get stuck in your ways on that too. And that is to a disadvantage. When I shoot with different photographers, or if I go out with groups, it all depends on the wildlife too. What I find is, if I'm shooting something that I've got a composition in mind, or it's shy, if it's a bird or it's some sort of animal that it's hard to get close to, being solo, that's actually a good thing. So you have to pick and choose, I think, when you're going out with friends, in terms of what the subjects are. But because if they're more cooperative, it's a lot more fun, I think, to shoot with friends, because they push you. There's different ideas. There's different things you can do, whether you're driving around in a vehicle and you're shooting out of the car, or you're at a famous spot. Like we have one here. It's called Conowingo Dam. and there's hundreds of eagles. Everybody's lined up
Yeah.
on the fence,
I
and
think
they
you've
they
mentioned this
photograph.
before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the $1 million fence, they call it, with all the. So there's certain locations I think it's great to shoot with friends or to shoot with other photographers. However, if you're in the woods, or you're doing camera trapping, or you're trying to creep up on something that's pretty shy, then it gets a lot more difficult, because you're doubling the amount of interference in the environment, or tripling, depending upon how many people you have with you. So I'm selective about it. But when I do, I mean, I always have a good time. Like we've talked, Rob, either you come over here or I get over there, but we have to shoot together, and I think we'll have a great time. If you're shooting fungi, obviously it doesn't matter. That's the
Yeah. We're
best.
not going to scare them
You
away,
chose
are you?
your subject wisely when the three of you went out. They're not going to run away from you. So a lot of it I think it depends on the subject matter and how close you can get.
Yeah. I mean, I think when you're shooting on your own, you're, you have your own agenda, and there's nothing that's going to get in the way of that.
Yeah.
And that's certainly a big plus point. But I found, to your point, when you were talking about those locations that you shoot in a lot, so in your case, your backyard, basically, you can get um, the, I guess the creativity can dry up a little bit with those, because you know the location, you know the species, you've shot them so many times that it's difficult to think of different ways and get inspired to shoot them in different ways. Whereas if somebody comes along, I mean, the case in point, I took Georgina to one of the local lakes just down the road from the house, and I was a bit concerned that, it's just mute swans and mallards and tufted ducks and these sorts of common species. And I was a bit concerned, well, hang on a minute, I've got this amazing photographer. Is she going to be a bit bored by shooting this stuff? Does she want something a bit more interesting, a bit more inspiring, perhaps? Is this location not that great? Or no, it couldn't have been further from the truth, because it was something new to her. She saw things that I couldn't see because I
Yeah.
got so blinded to the way I would do things, the way I would shoot things. I didn't see some of the other possibilities that she saw immediately. So she's shooting in ways that I've never done before. So she's, as I said, she's inspiring a different approach. She's pushing me. For instance, this lake is surrounded by these wooden fishing platforms. So it's like little jetties going out into the water, and they're generally about 18 inches, maybe 2 feet from the surface of the water.
Mm.
And I've always been quite happy to sort of shoot from those, thinking I'm low enough down, because the subjects are, generally speaking, far enough away that I can get away with that sort of elevation. Absolutely, she wasn't happy with that. So she was leaning over the platforms, getting the camera as close as to the water surface as she could to get that really sort of intimate angle,
This
to
is
the
where the
point.
flippy screen comes into play,
Yeah,
right?
so the flippy
Goodness
screen
for
was
the
out.
flipping screen.
Yeah, and she's holding the 180 to 600 and the Z8, which is what she was shooting with, and she's holding that over the platform, so she's bruising all across her chest because she's leaning on this hard surface. She's dipping her lens in the water, which we had to dry out with a hairdryer afterwards because it got all moisture in it. But it showed you that these are the tiny little things that make the difference between a good image and an exceptional image. And I'm thinking, why do I not do this? So I started copying. I'm thinking, no, this isn't good enough.
Yeah, there's
Being able to,
motivation, right? I mean,
yeah,
there's a sense of motivation, and you're being pushed to do different things. Yeah, that's huge.
exactly. And that to me was huge. And it was telling me that, or showing me that I shouldn't get complacent with these subjects. There's so much more I can do with them. And I've started messing around with slow shutter speed. I mean, really quite slow shutter speed stuff,
Mm.
and finding that really, really interesting and inspiring. And I'm getting all sorts of different, feels and different types of images. And there's so many different ways that you can approach subjects. And we sat there and talked for ages about this, sort of bouncing ideas off of each other. I just found it really motivational. And I think the other thing is that she immediately picked up on little things that I do that I could improve. It's,
Mm.
it's I've got very itchy feet. I can't stand still for too long, and so I like to move around quite a lot. And she was basically saying, "What are you moving for? We've got subjects in front of us. Have you exhausted taking photographs of what we've got in front of us yet? Have you done everything? Just sit down
Mm.
and concentrate. Don't keep moving around. Because okay, there might be something better around the corner, but there might not. Stay here
It's
and
the
stay
sure
where
thing,
you are."
right?
Yeah,
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, exactly what you just said. I was just thinking about it as well, Rob. It's a huge difference if you're shooting with another great photographer, or maybe two, maybe there's three of you out there. But I think, in my experience, it can get unwieldy on the flip side if you have four, five, six people. I've been on trips years ago where there would be four or five people and there'd be a group leader, or, especially in areas where you don't know, you have a guide and they'll show you the stuff just because you don't know where to find the animals. And I've been in that situation too. And it's great in the sense of diversity. You'll get put on many different animals and species because, but it's when you want to spend time, if you want to spend 20 minutes, hours even on cooperative subjects, there's always one or two in the group that are like, okay, time to move on. Or the guide is like, okay, I have to show you 10 other things because that's just me. I'm the guide. And it can get unwieldy because some people are more patient than others. And it's harder to do that in larger groups, unlike being in a more intimate setting where, like you're describing, it's you and Georgina, or sometimes I shoot a lot with Kurum, right? So it's Kurum and myself, and maybe we'll have one or two other photographers. But once it gets beyond that, it can be unwieldy because, there's so many different types of shooters. Some people like to go to different species. Some people like to stay with cooperative subjects. So that can be a challenge if it's more than two or three people.
yeah. I think large groups, I don't think would be for me
Yeah.
because of those very issues. And I like to spend time with people that I like and I respect photographically if I'm going to shoot with somebody, because you want to learn. You want to
Yeah.
see how they do things as they want to learn from you. And it's not a selfish thing. It's like you're giving and you're receiving at the same time. And it's just good to spend time with like-minded people. And I think you need to shoot in a similar way. Okay, so the way you approach things might not be identical, and I don't think that's a good thing anyway, to photograph things in an identical way. But I think there needs to be a meeting of minds in a way, or a meeting of approaches, and I think that way that you get the most out of it. So if you've got,
Mm.
for example, if you are looking at trying to photograph things with slow shutter and experiment with that, then that's great to be with somebody that's doing the same thing,
Hmm.
because with that there's so much scope, there's so much variance, you're never going to get the same image anyway, but just because of the nature of the beast, there's so many things that you can do. I mean, it might be that one's on 1/15th of a second and the other one might be shooting at 1 second.
Yeah.
You might be stopping down your aperture. You might be moving the camera in a different way. You might not be moving the camera at all. There's so many different things you can do with that approach. But when you start comparing what you've taken on the back of the screen, as we all tend to do
That's the
all the
magic
time.
moment, right? Hey,
Yeah.
what did you get? And you start comparing. It's like, you did that. It's amazing to see how different, even you could be photographing the exact same thing right next to each other. And it just, things come out different. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah. And it's the sense of competition as well, the sort of
Yeah.
friendly competition. So there's a lot of banter that goes on, and you'll call each other things under the sun if you get a good picture, but you're pleased with that person. You just
I can't think. It's coming to my head, sorry, but in the spring, I'll shoot with Kurum and my friend Jim. He's a photographer from Pennsylvania, and at times we'll shoot warblers and songbirds, and there'll be that, and they're very quick, right? Everybody knows a songbird; it's very fleeting. They're there for a second, or they'll sing, or they'll fly, and there's always that moment where it's like, oh, okay, this was really good, and the bird flies away, and then we look at each other. There's maybe two of the three. Hey, did you get that? Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then somebody's like, son of a beep, you, and then which photographer didn't get it. That always kind of makes me laugh because there's always the person to the competition point. Oops. To the competition point where somebody will get the shot when there's that dynamic moment and somebody that's there that doesn't, right? And that's just the luck of the draw. I mean, it happens to me, it happens to other people, but it can be fun also. You can have
Yeah,
fun with it.
perhaps more so when we had less frames per second as well,
Yeah.
because you're never going to get exactly the same shot, are you? But
Yeah.
I guess the faster we get, the closer we get to each other if we're shooting the same subject, and we've got that spray and pray going when, as Georgina likes to say, at the point the bird takes off or the fight happens or whatever it might be. But it was surprising actually that even when we were shooting with similar settings and we had the same subject, the way we would look at that subject in very, very different ways and come away with really different images. I found that very interesting. And just to get inside somebody else's mind and see how they approach it. I was shooting a lot of vertical format stuff for some reason. I felt that what I was looking at lent itself to that approach. And I've shown you that the shot of the swan, for example,
Yeah.
flapping its wings, and we talked about that, before we started recording, how Georgina saw that as a landscape image, and I tempted to agree actually that that's perhaps the way I should have gone, but I was looking at giving a bit more space, and I like the shape of the tree behind it, and I wanted to incorporate that. So it's little things like that when you can which give an image a very, very different feel, but you're shooting the same things, and
Hmm.
we spent, a good few hours the other day online just comparing pictures that we'd edited, that we'd shot together. And it was like, I didn't know you'd shot that. I didn't know you got that. I never would have looked at things in that way. Oh, that's interesting take on the subject. Or, you complete beep, beep, beep. I didn't, that is totally brilliant. Why did I not think of doing that? So it's this competitive edge, but it's with this really friendly demeanor about
Yeah.
it. And
You're trying to help each other out. And to your
exactly
point,
right.
it doesn't always have to be in the field too. Like I have a few close photographer friends will all exchange images that I process, right? Or images that I take and process. And then, we were just talking even before this, Rob, right? We were sharing images and critiquing each other. It's so helpful. And you don't even have to be in the field when you're taking the image. It's when you process and, you can get feedback of, hey, this looks too bright or this is too dark, or did you think of this? So many times have I improved my images just in the post-processing phase due to discussing it with other photographers. That's helpful too.
Yeah, well, you get so wedded to your own pictures, don't you? Because you
Yeah.
have this idea in your mind to start with, you sometimes can't see how there's an obvious improvement to something, or there are things that are obvious that you could do to try and change that
Too close
photograph.
to it, right?
Because
Yeah.
you're too close to it. Whereas somebody will come out and they'll look at it differently. They have a fresh approach. It's rather, I forget who it was now that said that they don't process pictures immediately after they've taken them. They'll put the memory cards to one side and leave it for a week before they even look at them.
That's smart.
I think that is smart. I can't do it because I'm too impatient. And I want to see what I've got, because often, you know what it's like. Sometimes images will look brilliant on the back of the camera when you're
Oh, I know.
flipping through them, and
Especially the
then when you
sharpness thing. It'll be a
yeah,
little softer when you bring it up and you're like,
and then when you
damn
bring
it.
it up, you can be really disappointed sometimes.
Yeah.
They're not as good as you thought they were. And on the flip side of that, there are pictures that you just bypassed on the back of the camera, which actually
Hmm.
turned out to be really
Yeah.
good when you get them
Yeah.
on the computer screen, and you didn't see the qualities of them on the back of the camera. So, there's always a flip side to those
It's nice
things as
to
well.
let things breathe too sometimes. Like I'll process an image, but I won't convert it to, the final TIFF and save the JPEG or upload it on my website. I'll just let it sit for a day or two and come back to it. And almost always I'll look and be like, oh, wait a second, because you have a fresh set of eyes. There's a little bit of delay in between. And I'll say, okay, well, I should do this. And the image always comes out better rather than just quickly doing the processing of it
Yeah,
and punching it out. So I've learned that's helped as well.
yeah. I think that there's also a bit of a problem with me as well. I think with not processing images quickly from shoots that I've done is I'm more inclined not to get round to doing it at all.
I'm a major offender of that too. I know exactly what you mean.
because you know when you've got that shoot fresh in your mind, you know what you were trying to achieve, so you want to at least get a few results from it pretty quickly. So I'll generally go through them quite swiftly, pick out the best things, edit two or three. I might sit on them for a bit. I might share them around, perhaps. But yeah, I generally want a relatively quick result from a shoot. Otherwise, I tend to forget about it. I'm on to the next thing. It's almost the shooting is the main thing for me rather than the processing and the end result.
I agree. I enjoy the shooting so much better than the pro. Actually, what I don't like about the processing is the culling, because I take so many images now with these cameras. It's 30 frames a second, and I come back and I'm like, oh Lord, that I hate. Once I have everything culled down to, okay, here are the 10 images I'm going to process. That's enjoyable because I could put a podcast on, listen to music. Just I have my tea, I'm in my moment, I'm on the desk, and I could just easily go and process one image after the other. It's the narrowing down that I hate, because I'm on my own worst enemy in terms of, if you have a sentimental value, like, yeah, like I have that for certain pictures because maybe I worked harder for the image or I like it better. And then I'm like, oh, I want to do this one. But people will come in, like photographer friends, we were just talking, and they'll say, well, that image is good, but this one's better. But I'm not as attached to it for some reason. All of those emotions come into play when you're culling and you have all these images. That's the worst part about it. Once I get through that, I'm okay.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you have worked hard for an image, nobody knows how hard you work for that image.
Or
You just
cares,
got to
right?
go, or cares. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
You just have to go with the what aesthetically you think is the best stuff.
Yeah.
Is the best, and
Maybe it
it
will
is
work
really
better
difficult.
for a reel or a TikTok because you could show behind the scenes,
Yeah,
but I don't do that.
and it's really interesting actually what people like and what they don't, and how they look at things and how different those opinions can be as well. And when I look at when I this slow shutter speed stuff that I've been doing, what I love about that actually is the variety of effects that you get. The textures, the tones, the colors, the shapes that you can achieve. Two images are ever the same, and you would never
Mm.
be able to replicate a photograph that you've taken again. So they've all very, very unique, rather than, let's say, you've taken a swan in the mist with the rising sun. Okay, those conditions don't come around that often, but you can pretty much replicate. I could replicate images that I've taken before, and I have done.
Hmm.
I mean, they're not exactly the same, but they're very, very. They're too similar for me to want to or be interested in taking too many more of them, if that makes sense. But
Yeah.
with the slower shutter speed stuff, I was finding that because they're all so unique, and because you can vary things so much with the same subjects in the same places and come out with very, very different feels to it, it was a hell of a lot of fun. But then the subjectivity of the choices there is so much greater as well, because I like certain shapes and patterns and thought things worked, and then I show them to other people, and they think that another image works better than that, and then the next person will think, well, no, the other image works better for them. So it's
Mm.
yeah, I think they're really quite difficult to get right, and I think generally speaking, you have to go with what you like and put out the stuff that does it for you,
That's
and
true to you. Yeah. Because,
because it's
yeah,
hard with your personality.
there's a fine point between getting input and helping out versus letting someone else determine for you what are your best images and what are the images you want to, promote to create your brand. I will say on the camera movement stuff, that's one thing I don't mind culling, because out of 200 pictures, they're all crap except one or two. So
This
it's
is
easy for
true.
me to pick those out. Yeah. So that's the advantage of camera movement for culling. So those I don't mind looking at.
Yeah, this is true. But I have to say, I've been away to. I went away to Wales a couple of weeks ago, and oh god, the weather was. Let's put it this way: I think we saw the sun once, so it didn't
Oh
rain,
boy.
but it was just dull, and you got those overcast skies. So what do? You do high key, you do camera movement. That's the sort
Mhm.
of thing you got to concentrate on doing. So I did. I didn't shoot that much, but one particular day I got out with a camera quite a lot, and I had a load of fun doing it.
Mm.
And actually, there are quite a few pictures. I did take a few, admittedly, but there are quite a few good pictures that I'm really pleased with from it.
Mm,
But generally speaking, yeah, a lot of those are going in the delete folder, to
yeah.
put it politely.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, like you were just talking about your recent experience with Georgina being out in the field and learning from each other. And even though your subsequent shoots were not with her, you were shooting perhaps by yourself. This happens to me too. The lessons that you've learned, are the things that you pick up from shooting with another photographer or photographers, then you can carry those things, and that kind of gets your tool belt gets a little bit enhanced, or you start looking at things a little differently, and it mixes it up versus getting stuck in the same old type of shooting over and over and over again.
Well, I think that's because photography is an extension of your personality. It's very difficult to develop new traits, and it's
Yeah.
the same with shooting styles, isn't it? You get stuck in your ways, and it's difficult when to think of things necessarily on your own without the inspiration of others. And I think once you've spent a few days like that, and you've had such good fun, and you've pushed each other creatively, that gives you a momentum which you carry forward for a few
Yeah.
weeks. And then I think then there's a tendency to slip back, and lose that inspiration. You need another injection of it. So
Mm,
for me, I think the right recipe is to shoot, with people occasionally, to get that inspiration, continue shooting on your own, and then go back and shoot with somebody again to reignite the fire, if you like, that sometimes burns a little dimly, or
I
can do.
agree. I feel the exact same way. And I try to avoid going on like a bird photography or a birding trip and ruin it for the other 7 people with their binoculars. And they're like, okay, we're done with this house sparrow, but it's doing something cool. And they want you off the trip. That's happened to me before too. So choose your, choose your partners
Bedfellows
wisely in
wisely. Yeah.
situations. Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
for sure.
Absolutely. Oh dear. It's
I'm
but
making
I
up the house sparrow thing, but whatever common bird it is, insert common bird doing something amazing and having a great setting versus everybody wanting to tick off, 50 more species in that day.
well,
You're not,
this is
you're
the
not good.
interesting thing, isn't it? Because when I look back at the species that we photographed, the best shots were mute swans, mallards, black-headed gulls, which are, here in their thousands,
Mm.
corvids, so rooks and crows.
Best things
Uh,
to shoot with groups, right? Or with
yeah,
other photographers or the more common inviting subjects, right? Yeah.
yeah. Well, so Stonehenge is right on my doorstep. Literally, it's 15 minutes from my house. And I had said to Georgina, "Do you want to visit Stonehenge when you come?" And she sent me this email back saying, "Duh." It's like, of course I do. So that's the first thing we did, actually, when she arrived really early in the morning, and I picked her up from the airport. And the first thing we did was go to have something to eat, and then go to Stonehenge. So what do two bird photographers do when they go to Stonehenge? They sit and photograph the birds with the lenses that they've got with them, which weren't the telephoto lenses. I had a 24 to 120, so we sat and photographed corvids. So I've got these high key. I showed you, didn't I? One of the
Yeah.
photographs that I took. Yeah, high key rooks. It was just good fun. It was quite funny, all these sort of, because Stonehenge is very busy because it's a major attraction. Obviously, all these people walking past us, going, you've got this World Heritage site, and there are these two mad people photographing common birds. It's like, what the hell's going on?
You make a good point too, and the places that I've shot with other photographers are places that are loaded with people that have birds and wildlife, but they're so accustomed to people, you can easily get close. Similar place in downtown Washington D.C., right on the National Mall. There's a place. It's a little pond, and there's ducks that winter there all winter long. They're probably there now, and they'll be there till April. I've shot with many photographers over the years. Photographers you would know: Nick Patel, Scott
Yeah,
Soriano, Kerm Khanna. We've multiple people. We were able to lay right. They come right up to you because they're either fed or they're just used to people and they don't fly. I was just at a state park a couple of weeks ago. They're in the peak of fall color, and it's great for herons, cormorants, turtles. Even I've never seen sliders. They let you go right up to them because they're constantly surrounded by people all year long. So those are great locations to choose. Subjects that are accustomed to people. That's a great spot to bring other photographers with you.
Yeah, and especially, I guess, being in the city or close to the city, you've got opportunities to shoot into the dark with the city lights in the background
Yeah,
and that sort of thing, which
yeah,
could be really interesting. I mean, just think about doing slow shutter with city lights, for example, which I haven't seen. I've
yeah.
seen that. I've seen the lovely reflections in the water, so you get those long, elongated spotlights, if you like, the different colors. I think of Aaron Todd, for example, does that really well,
Oh,
doesn't he?
absolutely. And Simone Baumeister with like
Yeah,
the stoplights and the spiders and stuff. Not really the camera movement, but just using that light in the
yeah,
city
yeah. Just
comes to
to
life.
just to silhouette things, but
Yeah.
just imagine doing that, but with slow shutter speed. Now,
Mm,
you see, those are ideas that come from shooting with other people and sharing ideas that you wouldn't necessarily have thought of on your own. And I think those are the great advantages with shooting with other people. But I do think they have to be like-minded. They have to be on a similar wavelength to you
yeah.
to get the most out of it. And I
Yeah.
think it's when
Unless
you
you're teaching somebody, I guess, or you're mentoring somebody. But yeah, I agree.
but then
Totally.
I guess that's a different situation because you're not necessarily going to gain inspiration from those people because they're learning a craft. They're
Hmm.
looking to you to provide that inspiration and knowledge. Whereas if you are on a similar level to somebody, then they naturally are going to respect your opinions anyway and be interested in what you have to say and more willing to share their own ideas.
Yeah. You can grow together, essentially, by exchanging ideas and different views. I've never come across it yet, and I've been shooting for a while. Come across a photographer that thinks exactly how I think or wants to do things exact. There's always some sort of variability, even if your tastes are the same and you both kind of shoot the same way or like the same thing. So there's always something that can be gained there.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think no two photographers are the same. We can all learn from each other, but there are times that you just want to be on your own because I think that photographers in general. I don't know whether you agree with this, Josh, but it's generally attracts an introverted type of personality anyway, which
Yes.
I certainly am. I know people will be shocked when you say Georgina is as well. In fact, she and I are quite similar in that way that we call ourselves extroverted introverts. Whereas there is this side to our personalities that we'll do things like the podcast and we'll are comfortable doing those things. We'll
Mm,
talk in public, perhaps not that I particularly, I say enjoy it. I do enjoy it. I don't relish it. That's
yeah.
probably the best
I'm the
way.
same way.
But I will once I've done it. I I'm glad that I've done it because I like the experience of it, and I do like to interact with people. But generally speaking, most of the time, I like to be on my own.
Yeah.
That's
I'm
my
the exact same way.
safe place, if you like.
I'm just like you and Georgie. It's a light switch for me. I have to turn that switch on, and I'm fine doing it. But I also enjoy turning the switch off. Like I don't,
Yeah,
I like to be gregarious and chat. And I'm actually, I don't mind small talk and work in the room and all that. But then I'm exhausted afterward. The light switch has to go off, and it's time to. Yeah, I'm the
it,
same way.
it's weird that the things that you said are exactly the same for me. That if I'm in a large group of people, I find it exhausting. And I
Hmm.
get to a point, it's like if you go shopping, for example, at the supermarket, which I hate anyway, but I will, I've always, one of those people that I've got a list and I'm in and out of there as fast as I can possibly manage it because I just don't relish that at all. Don't like it
Yeah,
at all. I'll do it, but it's sometimes big groups of people can be a bit like that for me that I'll, I'll do it but I get to a point where
you
I
have to
then have
break
to
away.
go. I have to walk away from it because I
Yeah.
can't cope with it any longer.
I
And
I get a rush from it actually, but then I have to come down from that. And I think I grew up in a small town. I'm primarily live in a small town now. You're talking 120 people here, and then grew up 500. So everybody knew everybody, and that forced you to beat the horn, say hi, be social. And I think that was always that helped me over the years, I think. But there's nothing like, to your point, I think when it comes to shooting or whatever, there's something peaceful about that solitude that I've always tried to rush
Yeah,
to, and that's part of the reason why maybe I like it so much, is there's
yeah,
a sense of peace and solitude there. You're kind of
exactly.
away from
I
the.
said you don't have to answer to anybody.
Yeah.
You have your completely your own agenda, and you don't have to fit in around anybody else.
Hmm.
It's very, very similar to. I enjoyed immensely going to London and to the Wildlife Photographer of the Year exhibition because I went to the press preview with Georgina. She invited me to kindly. Um, but the best thing about that was coming home again and coming
Yeah.
away from that, you know, hustle and bustle of the city, and coming back to the peace and solitude of home.
Yeah.
And the comfort, if you like, and that's very much like it, I think, with wildlife and shooting, and you know, being on your own. Most of the time, I do prefer it,
Hmm.
but actually, perhaps the best times are with other people when you look back on it, because they are.
You're sharing the memory, right,
Yes,
versus it just
exactly.
being in your head. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly right. So you can then share or revisit those experiences with that person and get more out of it. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, because we're all social. I mean, I guess you would say humans, we're social creatures, right? That's how we've evolved, and we have to be part of social groups in one way or another. And it could be the wildlife photography, or it could be whatever other hobbies or interests people have. But at the heart of it, deep down, we're social animals, right? So I think that's probably what drives some of that stuff. But yeah, no, I totally agree. I would call myself an extroverted introvert, I think, as well.
I think we ought to start our own group, hadn't we?
One other trait about photographers, though, that I've seen, well, wildlife photographers specifically, not only are they more introverted and like solitude, but it's a paradox. Most of them are also very competitive. We've touched a little bit on this. I've rarely met a wildlife photographer that didn't have some sense of competition in them, right? And it's just maybe it's the type of people that fall into this. I don't know, but it's actually quite competitive for having a lot of people who are doing things on their own. They see themselves, yeah, whether it's through social media postings or photo contests, even though they're on their own shooting most of the time, there's that perception in the back of their mind that they're trying to create images that can go to the top of that group. And whether that's Instagram or whether that's Wildlife Photographer of the Year or whatever that threshold is, they're in the arena, even though they're out there by themselves. There's that
Yeah, and I
sense.
think you and I are like that as well, aren't we? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yep.
I guess that's the reason why photo contests are so popular. I think it's because
Mhm.
it's a yardstick by which you can measure yourself against other people, because
Yeah.
you don't know what other people are shooting. When you enter a competition, you have no idea what that competition is going to comprise. You have no
Hmm.
way of knowing.
Absolutely. And
So
and a lot of people fall into that. I've met a lot of photographers who just get completely worn out or depressed because they don't win. And I always tell people, when it comes to photo contests, right? Because if they're not successful or they don't have a successful year and whatnot, what I try to tell people is that as long as you're consistently in the semifinals, as long as you're consistently placing, that to me is the metric, right? That tells you,
yeah,
you're doing well. When it comes down, and you know this more than anybody, Rob, I mean, way more than me, but like in wild art, and I'm sure in bird photographer of the year, years before that, when you come to the top of the top, it's so subjective and it matters on what the judges think or whatever. I think there's more luck involved in the selection than there is consistently placing in the semis or having things, that's the better standard for me, is are you how often is your work featured or selected for the second round or final round or
I
semifinal?
totally
That's a
agree
better
with
indicator.
that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
totally agree with that. I mean, we've talked about this before, so there's no point in going over that ground. But yeah, you know, competitions are so subjective. Judge get out of bed at the different side on a different morning, and a different image will win. I mean, you
Yeah.
just have to accept that. But
Yeah.
to your point, I think if you are getting into the shortlist, if you are placing somewhere, if you're getting commended, highly commended, whatever sort of system the competition uses. I think that's where you need to be, and I think that's where a lot of people, where a lot of photographers aim for. They want to know that at least they're being considered as part of that sort of final selection process. If they've
Hmm.
got that far, then they know that they're doing something right. And ultimately, if they enter enough competitions, it's only a matter of time. It will happen for them at some point. One of their images will stand out to somebody over something else, and they'll win. I mean,
Yeah.
you, you've tasted success. I don't actually enter as many competitions as people might think. I don't do it very often at all.
Mhm.
But I've had. It's nice to know that if you are in that shortlist, and to be quite honest, I'm not sure I really care if I got any further. As long as I, it sounds ridiculous to say it, but if you've got into a shortlist, I'm satisfied because I don't need to win. I don't.
Yeah.
I know that at least my photography is competing with some really good names, and that's good enough for me because I know
Yeah.
it's still relevant. I know I'm still doing something right. If you are entering multiple competitions and you're never getting selected, yeah, then I think you need to start
You
looking
got to
at
up
it.
your game.
Yeah, you got to
I,
up your game, and you
yeah.
see that's the good thing about shooting with other people as well.
Hmm.
Is you do have to up your game with those, and you naturally will up your game when you're with somebody else.
And one thing I'll say too for people out there, we don't all, based on where we live, where we are, we don't always have the privilege of having friends who are photographers or being close to the photographers that when I first started shooting, it was before Instagram and really social media. So I had to rely on, I didn't know any wildlife photographers. I met people eventually through Facebook, through Instagram, and that's how I kind of have my clique right now. When I first started, I couldn't throw ideas off of anybody. What inspired me, I bought photography books. Granted, you're not out shooting with Art Wolf. I bought a lot of his books over the years. Paul Nicklin. There was this bird photographer in America. His name is Art Morris, Arthur Morris, Art Morris. He wrote
Yes,
a book
yeah,
called
Georgina mentioned him to me, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, The Art of Bird Photography, and I think this came out in the 90s, right? That was one of the first. So I I didn't know these people, but I had their books and I studied their images from afar, and that helped me. And by the time you start meeting other people eventually through social media, but that gave me a foundation because without, being able to post on Facebook or getting feedback or sharing images, this was before all of that. Uh, there's, it's hard to have a benchmark or to run things by. I relied on just published material and books, and you could still do that. I think the most inspirational things I find are actually the contest books. Look at the Wild Art book. Look at, I just got a book recently from, what's his name? Art Wolf, and it was amazing. Right. And so you could still get a lot of inspiration from published media too, versus just
Yeah,
going
and
online.
how a lot of these people that are you would describe as a long in the tooth, perhaps, are still even gone through that sort of transition from film to digital to to now mirrorless and where digital is going is well it's gonna be mind blowing I think, but they've embraced those changes and uh, they've changed their styles. They've changed with the times. They've adapted to suit the conditions at the time. They're still innovative and still coming up with new things. And I think that's the sign of a really active mind, a really good photography brain. And I don't think those people change. I mean,
Hmm.
sometimes I have to pinch myself because I guess there is a part of me that thinks I've been really lucky with the breaks that I've had to be able to rub shoulders with the likes of Georgina and you and all these wonderful photographers that I've worked with in a judging capacity and have met through you know uh, competition entries and people I've spoken to, all the wild art interviews that we've done. I
Hmm.
do have to pinch myself to think, hang on, how have I managed to get to this position where a modestly decent photographer is how I would describe myself. I'm certainly not an innovator by any stretch of the imagination, like like a Georgina, perhaps. I always look at her as being a very inspiring photographer. She always looks at trying to do something differently, and sometimes I
Yeah.
have to pinch myself and think, hang on a minute, you know, I'm I'm out shooting with these people. I'm sharing ideas with these people. It's an absolute, it's a privilege. It really gives me a buzz, and I think
Yeah.
that, and that's what we're trying to get to. I think with photographing with other people, it's rather like them. They say if you want to improve your, if I don't know, if you're playing badminton or tennis or whatever it might be, if you are playing people that are not as good, are not to your own standard, you're never going to progress. The only way to get better
Right.
is to play the better people, the people that are going to be
Yes.
beating you to start with. And I think it's the
Hmm.
same in photography. If you just hang around with people that are happy to be at a level, then you're going to stay there. If you
Yeah.
want some new ideas, new inspiration, it might not be that easy to just go out with a Josh Galicki or a Georgina Statler or whoever it might be. It's you're not that accessible. Other than obviously people like Georgina do workshops, and you can go on a workshop with her. And I think that's probably the way that I would do it now, is to go on that odd workshop to get that inspiration. But yeah, as I said, I think it's for me, I feel so privileged to have been able to do that, and
Hmm.
to get into a situation where I am shooting one-on-one with these people, and we're pushing each other equally. So they're no longer people that you look up to as a tier above you. You look at them as
As
equals,
a
and that
peer.
is a is,
Yeah.
is fantastic.
What's important too, Rob, and I agree with everything you said 100%. And I think what's also important is when you're shooting with other people, you're sharing images, you're sharing ideas, you need to have a spine. You need to have resilience. We're all lifelong students when it comes to photography. I've come across people in the past where you give feedback and immediately it's go to hell, you're bullshit, this is a great image and I don't want to hear what you have. They only want people, it's part of the human condition, right? You want praise, you don't always want that constructive criticism. But I see this all the time with adults. Most adults can't take constructive criticism. You have to be able to take that. It's going to make you better, and don't take offense to that. I was talking about this Art Morris guy. I don't even know if he still shoots. He's got to be up there in age, but I sent him images many, many moons ago, and he responded to me. He's like, "These suck." It was when I was first starting, and he was honest, and I didn't really take offense to that. And I started to think, okay, how can I get better, right? What can I do? So you have to be open to feedback. It's coming from a good place, 100%. He could have been a little more diplomatic, whatever, but it's always coming from a good place. And you have to have that sense of resiliency and realize this is a lifelong passion, and you can always improve. You can't have thin skin with this stuff. You need to be able to open up your images and get that feedback. Some people just don't have that.
Well,
And you
some
have to have
people will ask multiple people until they get the response that they were looking for. And
exactly.
that's just that if you want to improve, if you that's no way to go about it. I mean, it's similar to our discussion we had, before we started recording this, about a certain event that took place at the beginning of the month in your country. Where somebody's just, people just want to hear
Yeah.
what they want to hear. And if somebody tells them what they want to hear, then the vast majority of people are going to settle for that. It's putting yourself in an uncomfortable position. So writing to Art Morris and showing some of your pictures and then getting that criticism back, the vast majority of people, because I'm sure you weren't the first person to do that, the vast majority of people, I can guarantee you, that will have done that will have gone, what does he know? I'll go and ask somebody else until I hear what I want to
Yeah.
hear. The people that take that advice on board and say, okay, yeah, maybe he's right. Maybe I need to look at this, and I need to improve, or I need to do things differently. How can I do that? What's the process? Has he got any advice for me? Is there a comeback to him and say, fine, could you give me a couple of tips? And that's probably what those people are looking for. If somebody did
Yeah.
that to me, I'd be going, right, this person isn't pissed off at me because I've been honest, and I will always be honest about images. I don't blow sunshine up anybody's backside
Yeah.
when it because what's the point? If you ask my opinion, I'll give it to you. And like, I would expect somebody to give their opinion on my images, and I don't care if that opinion doesn't necessarily agree with my own initial thoughts, there's always something that you can get out of that.
Yeah. You can
And
disagree with
yeah.
somebody's opinion, but at the same time, if you're not willing to accept any feedback or you resist all of it, it implies you already know everything. And no
So
one
why did
knows
you
everything.
ask in the first place?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You
For
know,
the praise. Yeah.
exactly that.
Yeah.
So I think it's a whole mindset thing, and as we've said so many times, photography is subjective. So what you like, I'm not necessarily going to like.
Yeah.
There are areas of agreement, of course, there always are, but yeah, how many times have we seen it in the judging process? There are images that that, will polarize people
Yeah.
completely,
Absolutely.
and it's not uncommon. It's not uncommon. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
bit of a rant.
I was I was a part of a Facebook group years and years ago, and it was a critique group. So we invited people to submit an image, and then there were 4 or 5 of us on the panel. We would critique the image in the sense of, "Hey, did you think about this?" Or this could be some of the conversations I remember out of, some of the feedback from the photographers after we critiqued. I mean, most of the time it was thank you so much, and people appreciated it. People really appreciate when you take the time and help them. But there's always folks that they just want the praise and they think they take it personally, right? It's like you shame them.
Yeah.
And there's a lot, it's something to realize, and we all have this a little bit because we all have pride. We all want to be proud of our work. But at the same time, I think we need to be humble and accept information, whether it's in the field, if you're shooting with somebody, or whether it's post-processing or somebody says, hey, did you think about doing this? Always listen, because it's going to make you better in the long run.
Yeah, and I think it's how you deliver that critique as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
That makes such a difference. I mean, you know this as well as I do. Being a judge on quite a large competition platform that we both
Yeah.
judge for, we are often critiquing images that aren't in the same league as a lot of the stuff we're used to. So there'll be variable quality there. And I always try and be very, very positive about things, but at the same time, point out areas that could be improved if certain things were changed. And I think
Hmm.
so you're giving somebody that confidence, and then you're giving them some information that might help them improve. I'm always looking at we were going through images, weren't we, before we started recording this, and I was showing you some of the stuff that I've been taking, and you did likewise. And with the slow shutter stuff, I was saying to you, I like this image, I like where this is going, but this isn't there yet.
Hmm.
I want a combination of that image and this image. I want the light from that image, and I want the type of textures and shape and form that I've got with that image. That's where I want to try and get to, so that it's an iterative process constantly. You're looking to him to improve, go on to the next phase, look at where can I improve on that. It's like the motor car isn't made the same way it was 50 years ago. There's every new model, there's an improvement.
Yeah.
There's an improvement on the engine. There's an improvement on the on the stuff that we on the dash and the layout and the seats and the fuel economy. The improvements being made constantly, and I think that's the way people should be looking at their photography as well, or people that want to progress and want to keep up. I think that's
I agree. In the improvement, sometimes you can't even see it for yourself because most people, it's very iterative and it's slight. And the more you get out, the more you're in the field, and over the years, you continuously will improve. Rarely will I see a photographer go from A to Z. It's always iterative, and we're always constantly building. And sometimes you can't even see it until you go back and you reflect on your images. I mean, I was just looking at some images I've taken over the years, and I could see the change. Not just improvement, but also changes in style and taste, and
yeah,
that'll all
absolutely.
happen. But it happens slower than what you think.
Yeah, and I can see this in myself when I put together talks for camera clubs, for example, and I'll say, "Oh, actually, I want to put that new image in because I want to show fresh stuff." And then you think, well, actually, I'm going down a road that I hadn't gone down when I did the last talk, so there's something
Mhm.
else to talk about now. So
Mm.
yes, photography, I think, is needs to be a constantly iterative process,
Yeah.
and shooting on your own, I think, slows that process down. So the more insular you are then I think perhaps the slower your own personal development will be if you inject these times of, I guess, company, and you're collaborating with somebody, then I think that speeds the whole thing up again.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's where I think it's important. And let's face it, apart from anything else, it can be a hell of a lot of fun. So if you're feeling in a pretty dark place, which I think we can, particularly if you're if you've got a very introverted personality, I think those types of people are a bit more prone to finding those and exploring those dark parts of their psyche. I think it's very important, to connect with other people. And
And to have that human connection in the field.
yeah,
A lot of people are willing to accept a connection of, all right, I'm just going to always be by myself. I'm going to shoot. And when I post this great image on Instagram or Facebook, I'm going to view or judge the level of connection by the amount of likes or comments that I get. Much better to be with somebody physically in person out in the field, enjoying and shooting together. Much more rewarding than trying to get the social media back pat on the back, and it's never that rewarding. It's
yeah,
not built to
social.
be. Yeah, it's
Yeah, we've talked about social media, obviously, and yeah, eh, there's so much importance put on it, I think, by people, and I think it's
it's
a bit of a.
unhealthy.
I think it is unhealthy. I think it's a bit of a mistake, and the more that we rely on these social media platforms, the further we get away from people. It
Yeah.
the more we're connecting with people in that way, the further we move away from those human connections. I think those real life human connections, which are so important. And as I said, shooting with other people at times, you can have so much fun. I mean, Georgina and I laughed until we cried at times. It was just, and you came away from the whole process. Not only have you got all these new ideas, but you just feel so much more positive about all sorts of things in your life, and so I think these connections are really, really important.
Yeah. And we talked about this before too, but if you have a great image, don't put it on social media. Submit it to the contest.
Yeah.
And don't get some cheap likes out of it. It's going to ruin
Yeah,
it.
I mean, and the
Hide
other
that
thing is,
image. Hide that image.
and then the other thing is, you take what you think is a really good image, and then somebody will say, "Oh, that's a lot of crap."
Yeah, exactly. Or you get like 3 likes
Burst
on it.
my bubble. Go
Yeah.
on, or why didn't you shoot it like this? Or
And chances are everybody wants the bird on the stick anyhow. That's kind of what goes well on social media.
you want diving kingfishers, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Or the singing whatever songbird on the manicured perch with the
yeah, that's what they want. That's what they
yeah.
want. It's interesting, isn't it, when you look at some competition platforms that have crowd choices, and I can always pick out what's going to win.
Yeah. It's so
And
easy.
it's
Yeah.
always the cliches that we've spoken about on another podcast. Of
Yeah.
course, it just
Yeah.
tends to be that thing: the colourful birds singing, the diving kingfisher, the diving gannet, it's all
People have
the
had
African
good humor
mammal.
with that cliche episode that we've done. So whenever I'll post certain things, some folks, and it's all out of good fun. It's kind of funny. They'll say, "Hey, Josh, this is pretty cliche. This is cliche number."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Do
So
you not
people have had
remember
good
your
fun with it.
podcast?
Actually, I've enjoyed it.
You're
Yeah,
never going to be allowed to post another picture of a diving gannet again, are you?
I think that's right. I think that's right.
But you see, that to me is all good,
Yeah.
humored banter, and that's how it should be. And that's the sort of thing that you get when you shoot with somebody one to one, or
Hmm.
two or three of you go out, and I think that's just so important. But
Yep.
and I think that's probably a good place to leave it on a nice positive note.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So what's next for you? What you got lined up?
This is the first day this morning. I was looking out in my spotting scope. The buffleheads are back. I've got some ducks starting to arrive because it's been so abnormally warm and
They're
dry.
just awesome birds.
They are so cool. Yeah. So probably in the next couple of weeks, I'll be out there shooting ducks, photographing ducks. I always,
Yeah, yeah.
to the layman, sometimes it sounds like I'm talking with a rifle, not a camera. So yeah, photographing ducks, and that's about it. Getting ready for the holidays, but nothing.
Yeah.
Mostly local shooting. I'm going to try to get to. There's a famous spot not far from me. I'm going to try to go tomorrow, and it's called Bombay Hook. and going to drive around there to see what I can find. So, but other than that, that's about it. How about you, Rob?
Well, the wine's just arrived, so it's that time of
Oh,
the
wow.
evening.
All
So
right.
yeah, so just you might have heard Jennifer in the background delivering wine, so that's good. Me, oh, we're so close, aren't we, to Christmas? We're recording this, getting on towards the end of November.
Mm,
So it's so close to Christmas. Again, I guess. Well, I'm going to Wales again at the end of January. So we're staying in a cottage that we stay in. It was right by the coast. Literally, I can roll out of bed and photograph, not shoot, obviously, the shorebirds. So I'm really
mm,
looking forward to that. Other than that, I guess similar to you, I'm going to be shooting locally. Um, yeah, a lot of the ducks will be congregating now on the local lakes. We'll hopefully, if this rain ever stops, get some nice sort of winter type light with the sun
mm.
nice and low in the sky. There, a lot of the geese and things will be coming back to the coastal locations. So yeah, try and get out and do some of that. I'm going to keep experimenting with the slow shutter stuff,
Yeah,
which I've
cool.
really been enjoying. So that's kind of a bit of a project because I can see how I can photograph things so differently. All these common subjects, I can then go back and photograph with a different idea in mind every time. So yeah, that's really where my focus is going to be. I think is just the local, the local haunts, and looking forward to going to Wales, at the beginning of next year. Well, I think it's end of January, beginning of February, we go away. So I'll really be looking forward to that. Obviously, we'll hopefully record a podcast or two before then. Yeah, so it's really just the local stuff, I guess.
Great.
Nothing mad. But we really must sort out you coming over here, or me, or both,
Yeah,
and do that
we
because
have
I
to
think
do it.
that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
That would be a
we
lot of
definitely
fun.
have to do it.
So let's
I've
let
already got a Stonehenge picture in mind as we're talking, so we definitely.
come and stay. I'll pick you up from the airport. We'll go and do Stonehenge again,
All right.
and yeah, and then winter would be a good time actually.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it'd
want
be
to
a
see
good time.
Salisbury Hill too, just because I'm a Peter
Oh, well,
Gabriel fan.
we can do that. Well, we can do all of that because that's just down the road as well.
Okay.
So it's all within spitting distance, as they say. So
Very cool.
we must do that. But anyway, good to chat. I hope people have enjoyed that. Another candid conversation, and I hope it resonates with everybody. And I hope it inspires you actually to, if you haven't been shooting with anybody recently, to perhaps go out with a friend and go and have a bit of fun. Try and seek some inspiration. If you're feeling, perhaps in the photographic doldrums, which I get myself into quite often, then I find that if you do something like that, do something a bit different, then yeah, it can often turn your year around and get you started again. So yeah, I hope that's helped.
Absolutely.
Yep. Well, thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you again next time.
Talk soon.
You have been listening to the Wildlife Photography Podcast. If you have enjoyed the content, then please help us to spread the word by sharing a link on your social media platforms, giving us a like, and leaving us a comment. See you all again next time.